Remember one of my coach of mine asked me to do a video and I literally cried. I did not want to be seen. I did not want anyone to hear my voice. My heart is racing, I'm having palpitations, my tongue's getting dry. Like it's having a real emotional and physical reaction from us feeling like we're not worthy to take up space. We're not worthy to be seen as the version that we want to be. Nobody wants to deal with pain. You know, they'd rather pour their thoughts and their energy into something that is not easy. I feel like you just have to get to acceptance. Because one, you'll never be able to change that other person. I get to choose how I want to feel. I get to choose how I'm moving forward. I get to choose, how I let these emotions and these past experiences control my life.
Welcome back to Higher Density Living. I'm your host, Jason Rigby, and today we have a truly fascinating guest. And Theresa Nguyen, I'm not pronouncing it right, but that's kind of us American way that we pronounce it. I know you have a Vietnamese last name. She is a registered nurse. And guys, we're going to talk about this. She's a dragon channeler, energy healer, and spiritual thought leader. She was born to Vietnamese refugees who escaped during the fall of Saigon on one of the last helicopters out. We're going to get into that. Theresa's journey is itself a testament to transformation. She's evolved from pursuing the conventional American dream to discovering and channeling what she calls dragon energy, an ancient life force that predicts and predates time itself. As a dragon channel, Theresa helps people activate their dormant power centers, transmute their fears, and connect with their soul purpose. She believes that dragon energy is both passionate and purposeful, combining both feminine and masculine energies to help humanity with their healing and ascension. So today we're going to explore the fascinating world of dragon energy and understand how it can help us unlock our spiritual potential and learn how we can all access this ancient wisdom from our own transformation. So Theresa, welcome to Higher Density Living.
Jason, hello everyone. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm excited. I want to talk about your journey a little bit. As a child of Vietnamese refugees, was there, like, growing up, like an aunt or a grandma, did you have any ancient heritage influence?
No, not in terms of the work that I do today. I was raised in a very traditional Asian Catholic home. So any of this type of work was very taboo. It was, correlated with the devil's work. The things that I did do when I was younger was just things like light as a feather, stiff as a board, or going into the bathroom, shutting all the lights and calling on Bloody Mary. Of course, none of that ever did anything.
Right.
But yeah, no, I wasn't guided by anyone in my own family to step into this work.
Is it like whenever you look at, because we always correlate like dragons with, Eastern mysticism. And I know there's some, dragons, Western mysticism. We'll get into that a little bit. But when it comes to your family, do you feel like because of your Vietnamese heritage, this was something that was brought to you? As a child, when did you begin to start experiencing some type of spiritual awakening?
I wouldn't call it a spiritual awakening, but I had a visitation when I was around 12 years old, so sixth grader. So it was in the middle of the night. I woke to this really bright white light, like right in front of my dresser. I didn't know what to do. I just kind of stared at it. And eventually it formed into what looked like the Virgin Mary. And I wish I would have asked her questions, but I think I was just observing and sort of in awe. And then that was it. From after that, I never had any other experiences or felt like I was different in any way other than my own ethnicity. In terms of my spirituality, I was really devoted to my religion, and staying sort of small in that Catholic circle. But in terms of dragons, that has always been a part of my culture. It's very familiar. It's normal. They, are symbols of wisdom and power and authority and grace, which is kind of the opposite of Western culture. There, if we think about, is it Game of Thrones? Yeah.
Yeah, Game of Thrones.
These are fierce dragons who are destructive and they kill and they're crazy and everybody fears their power. Yeah.
Right,
And
right.
so that's not really the energy that I resonate with, but also I was born in the year of the dragon, and I kiddingly always told people, I'm a dragon, not really realizing in my adult life that I would be actually working with dragon energy.
Does it now, like whenever you're 12 years old and, it's obviously this spiritual form or whatever it was, this higher consciousness, and maybe you can explain it a little bit more, being 12, not understanding, do you think it came to you with that feminine energy of Mother Mary? Because that would be something that you would understand as spiritual, or what do you believe that it was?
Yeah, I think it came through as Mother Mary because it would have felt safe to me. And it would have been something that I could, in my head, comprehend, because my parents would talk to me or share stories of the apparitions of the Virgin Mary, her appearing to other children in the world. So that was something that made sense to me. And I didn't fear it. It was just like, she decided to say hi to me, But other than that, there wasn't much more in terms of my curiosity or trying to understand it better at that age.
So you would look at it as kind of almost like a blessing of like our privilege that she would come visit you.
Yeah.
Now, did it change your life from that moment on, or did you kind of forget about it? Like when?
I'm like a teenager hanging out with my friends, reading 17 magazine, in love with, I can't remember who it was. I had my own priorities at that time.
Right. And so when did you start like really understanding that there was something unique about your desire to understand spiritual things?
It wasn't until this was like I'm approaching 50, so it's been over 10 years. So I'd say like 11 to 12 years is when 12 years ago is when it started. And it was during a Halloween seance close to my home. I was just curious about it. And since it was Halloween, I thought, wouldn't it be fun to go to a haunted house and just check out to see what this person has to say about us? At the same time, I had just started my journey as an entrepreneur. I was in this plateau stage trying to understand, like, how can I move this business? How can I move like my numbers upwards? Because I had been doing all the strategies and hired coaches and all of that, but like nothing was moving. So I thought, well, maybe some ghost, somebody might give me a hint as to, how I can make more money. So I had this reading. It was something that I didn't resonate with at the time because my mindset and where I was in my life I was just in a different place. Like you were saying, I'm a nurse by background, so I need evidence, I need data. I never really leaned towards the woo, although there was a receptivity there. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone to the haunted house, right? And the reading basically was my grandmother, my mom's side, came through. I never knew her. My mom didn't know her because she died when my mom was very young. And she shared with us that I held these spiritual gifts and that I would be the key to ancestral healing within my family lineages, that I wouldn't have to go digging or research or try to learn anything in terms of like what it is that I would be doing. It would just happen. And it was a very powerful reading, all in just 10 minutes, but I kind of wasn't interested because, again, as I was telling you before, I'm like, I just want to know how to make more money. And that question wasn't answered. So I was really disappointed. However, that was the moment that started my journey into understanding spirituality, because from there, it did open up more of a curiosity, more of a, an openness to hire a spiritual mentor to help me overcome whatever these energy blocks were that was keeping me from making more money. And it wasn't that I couldn't make more money. It was just that path that I was taking wasn't aligned with what I was meant to do. And And eventually, that kind of snowballed into becoming an energy healer. And I would like to tell people my awakening was not quick. It was slow. It kind of dragged because of my analytical and logical mind. I really resisted believing anything where I couldn't have proof of some sort. So I struggled with that for many, many years. Fast forward to about 4 years ago, this is where dragon energy comes in. So I was a healer for about 6 years. And then I went to a retreat at Mount Shasta as part of the support team. I knew going to Mount Shasta that I was going to experience something. However, it wasn't anything that I thought that I would actually experience. And this is the story that I'm going to share with you. The first night was a sound bath. And after dinner, we stepped into the yurt. As soon as I stepped into that yurt, my heart starts to race. And my heart is like beating outside of my chest. I don't really understand why my body is reacting this way because I'm not scared. I'm not like anticipating. I really was coming in with a very calm mindset, wanting to receive this sound bath healing. So there was this misalignment with what I was thinking and feeling and what was actually happening in my body. And then these crazy thoughts of, oh my God, I'm going to die started coming in because I couldn't control it, and I'm a, what do you call it? Recovering control addict. I guess I should say, it's like, oh my God, I can't control this. What is going to happen to me? But there was nothing else that I can do. And at the same time, I wasn't feeling like it was an emergency where I needed to, alert somebody. So I laid down with everybody else and the sound bath started. As soon as the facilitator started beating her drum, it was like this energy started to grow within my body and it just continued to expand. Meanwhile, I'm constricting and I'm holding it in and I'm praying and pleading and asking God, please, whatever this is, not now. I was so scared of it because I had no idea what it was. It was not familiar. It freaked me out. There was nothing else that I knew to do to calm myself. And so at that point, I ended up just surrendering. And I allowed this energy to move through me.
I want to get into a little bit about your own journey of self-discovery. We kind of went through your life and everything that was going on with that. But what are some of the things that you feel in your personal journey that influenced your work and your guidance that you just did a retreat in November, the things that you guide and offer to others?
Because I have always had issues with my throat chakra in terms of expression, sharing how I feel, my opinions. I feel like that is one of the most impactful things that I offer to clients is to be able to have the courage to be seen and heard. What that means is to be able to show up without feeling fear that someone is going to judge you or criticize you or, like we have this fear of visibility, like this feeling of like almost like death. That's how I used to feel, like death. I remember one of my an earlier coach of mine, she had asked me to do a video and I literally cried because I was so fearful of it. I did not want to be seen. I did not want anyone to hear my voice. And because of just the personal growth, spiritual growth that I've been through for many decades, I would say that's one of the big things that I offer to clients is to be able to show up as a spiritual healer, as a light worker, so that you can be seen and heard and share your gifts so that you can help others. Because essentially, those are the types of people that I attract are those people who want to have some sort of impact on the world.
So do you feel like it's the I'm not good enough?
Yeah. Well,
what causes someone, like even for yourself, I don't know how personal you want to get, but what causes somebody to be like, I can't talk right now. I want to say something, but I can't.
Yeah, there's a lot of unworthiness, and it always stems from how you grew up. And this is not to blame anyone. Like, this is not to blame your family, your parents. It's how you were raised, because that is significant in who we become. And so for me, as an Asian American woman who was raised in a very traditional Vietnamese family, I was not encouraged to speak up. In fact, it was more like, you're the child, you listen and you obey. So it was just a lot of discipline, a lot of acceptance and piety.
Yes.
And I thought that to be that way meant to be loved. I didn't think in my head that if I'm quiet, my parents will love me. It's a belief that I took on. And then it turned into like, I had to be perfect as well. So all these patterns that I didn't realize were patterns until I stepped more into this whole spiritual world, opened up my eyes to what has kept me from being able to come out of this box, and it felt more like a jail, not even a box, because I couldn't say the things I wanted to say because I was scared that people wouldn't like me. They wouldn't accept me. They, like, even acquaintances, it wasn't even my family. It was like random acquaintances. I wasn't even friends with them, but their names would pop up in my head when I thought about, I want to show up as the Dragon Channel, but I'm just going to throw a name out there. Jenny, Jenny's going to see me on Instagram, and oh my God, next time I see her at a party, what is she going to say to me? It's those kind of things. And when I say that out loud, it sounds so ridiculous, but it's real, because I feel it. I could feel it in my body, like my fight or flight response, like I'm heating up, my heart is racing, having palpitations, my tongue's getting dry, like it's having a real emotional and physical reaction. But getting back to your question, where do I think it comes from? I think it comes from us feeling like we're not worthy to take up space. We're not worthy to be seen as the version that we want to be seen as, or we are still in fear of our power. And what I mean by our power oftentimes is the gifts that you hold, whether it's a clear gift or it's, a talent. So let's just say it's a talent, like this natural talent that you have, fear of being able to share that because it's so unique. Instead of freaky, we think it's freaky. It's actually really unique.
That's and that's something that I want people to understand, because we have a lot of introverts that are listening to this, or, there's even like these cool things that are empaths and this and that, everybody likes labels. And it's so interesting to me whenever, then, like you said, people are drawn to you in that way. And you mentioned the throat chakra, which I think is interesting. When you say that they haven't came to their power, and I know that's part of your work, is understanding and releasing that. What are some of the blocks that you're seeing whenever it's coming up? Is it mainly just childhood or bad relationships? Like, what's coming up?
So the majority of people I work with are women in their 40s.
Let's stick with just women.
Okay. And they're moms. A lot of them are mothers. And it's that they have poured their entire adult life into raising children, whether they're at-home mothers or working full-time. It's like all their energy is focused on something else, someone else besides themselves. And so they've kind of become lost. They don't know who they are. They don't even know what they want. And it's gotten to this point where life isn't fun anymore. Life isn't joyful. It affects their relationships with people because they are resentful towards their spouse or their children because they aren't fulfilled. And it's not that they understand they aren't always aware that that's the reason why they're feeling resentful. But
it's kind of like, what's wrong with me? Why do I hate my kids and my husband?
Yes. And I totally just lost my train of thought.
Oh, no, you're fine. I interrupted you. But I'll bring back to this question, because I think it's real. Let's stick with 40-year-old women that are married, because we have a lot of women that are in their 40s that listen to the podcast. So this is really good. Men do it with their work. Women do it with their children. Why do you think people don't want to deal with themselves, so they use work or children as excuses?
Well, because it's hard. It's painful. Like during COVID, when everyone was forced to stay at home with their own thoughts. I mean, And,
Yeah.
and it's funny. I remember seeing an Instagram reel where somebody was walking around the neighborhood during trash day, and in the recycling bins were bottles of alcohol, because people
Yes.
did not
Yes.
want to deal. They don't want to sit with their thoughts and what it is they're thinking. And one of the biggest themes that came up during that time during COVID with clients was fear of death. Because
Mhm.
they, obviously everybody was dying around them too, but also they've never had to think about it. They never had to think about their own mortality, and then all this anxiety comes up, all this stress. So nobody wants to deal with pain. They'd rather pour their thoughts and their energy into something that is not easy, but it is much easier than sitting with the emotions that are not being processed.
Is it the reason that a woman's doing this, especially because we could talk guys and work, but we'll stick with women. So I'm not picking on any, masculine, feminine, whatever. We're all of that. But, one of the things that I think is really important is the trauma that we have. A lot of times we use excuses, like raising the kids, dumping 100% into that because we don't want to deal with what our uncle did when we were 8 to us. You know what I mean? Because it's just too traumatic.
Yeah.
So why don't I just go and be busy so that thought doesn't come up, when I'm making love with my husband and I think of what my uncle did to me. I don't even want to do that either. So do you see what I'm saying? Does that happen a lot?
Yes. I mean, it's just avoidance, like avoidance of taking responsibility of your own healing. But also, I think
That's
people,
good. Yes.
I think also people feel like when something happens to you by someone else, somehow you have to get to forgiveness. And I don't feel like that's necessary. I feel like you just have to get to acceptance because one, you'll never be able to change that other person.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right.
And two, somehow you think that they're going to apologize to you. You have that expectation, like you need to come in, like, give me closure, but you can't force them to do that either. But if you just accept them for who they are, you accept exactly what happened to you. There is no, justification in that. It's just this person is who they were. This is what happened to me. I accept both things. And I also accept that I am an adult now. And I get to choose how I want to feel. I get to choose how I'm moving forward. I get to choose, how I let these emotions and these past experience control my life. So I say that I know it's a lot harder than it sounds, but when we get to that point of acceptance, I feel like you find so much more freedom in that.
You have power.
Yeah.
You're not the victim
yes,
anymore.
Exactly.
So, and I think like version 2.0 for those that are listening to this, if you want to take this a step further in your healing, A Course in Miracles does a really good job on what forgiveness is. It's like their take on this is nothing was really done to you because we're all one. So which is really tough. That's advanced to get to understanding, that the shadow side of people are just as your son is just as loving to you, your uncle was loving in his own hurt way. So it's a really advanced teaching, but it's so freeing because I had a really traumatic childhood, lots of issues, was raised in a cult, had lots of problems, was homeless for a long time. And I had to work through all of that process and then finally realized that in this meat suit at this time, this was my learning lesson. I needed to go through this to be where I'm at now. And I'm so happy I went through it all. I needed all of that to evolve to the point of where I'm at now. And understanding, and the love that I have for those people that hurt me, and I think that's where the alchemy happens, is in that process of healing. And I want to get into, because that's a lot of your work. If somebody's starting, they can work with you and there's courses and we'll get into your website. But what advice would you give to someone who's just starting to explore? I have a lot of people that say, like, I don't know where to start. Do I read the Bible? Do I read the Quran? Do I read the Course in Miracles? Well, where do I start? How do you tell people when they want to start exploring their spirituality?
I tell them just to start anywhere, to be honest with you. I feel like spirituality is it's not a religion. It's an essence of your soul. So what speaks to you? Does the Bible speak to you? Maybe just parts of the Bible speak to you. And then, maybe you could move on to exploring other spirituality books to see what information in there resonates with your truth. As you continue to explore and learn and gain knowledge, you'll start to get a little bit more clear about what you believe to be true, because you and I have different beliefs about what is true for us and what's not. And so does everybody else in this world. So there's I think, an easy thing that new learners get sucked into is they will follow a specific teacher and then believe everything that teacher says without question.
Yes, 100%. Right.
So I would always encourage people to ask questions. Ask questions of yourself, ask questions of the teacher, ask questions wherever you can, because there's so much knowledge out there and there's no right or wrong. Okay. There's just a insane amount of information for you to be able to choose what you want to believe and what you don't want to believe.
Was there a lot of baggage with Buddhism with you, with your family coming from Vietnam, or is that something that you embrace now?
Well, I was raised Catholic, and yes.
Yeah, I remember that. But as far as if you go to Da Nang, or that's where all the tourists go. But if you go to these places in Vietnam, it's just everywhere you see.
That has never affected us in any way. Yeah. I feel like Catholicism is, at least in Vietnam, is common enough that there's no, not that there's no separation, but it's not like a big deal. It's not like you're Catholic.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting because I talked to a lot of Filipinos and they're all Catholic, of course, because of what happened. I think most Filipinos are Catholic, but it's really interesting to see how different cultures have to deal with the trauma and also the religion. So when somebody starts out, I've had people say, well, I can't do the Christian because I was in churches. And like you said, go where your soul will guide you. Your higher self will guide you
and
in the direction.
Just because you have a religion doesn't mean that you can't explore spirituality. When I first started out, I thought that I had to leave the church. I'm like, if I'm learning all these spiritual things, then I think I need to leave the church. And I'm like, I just made it so extreme, and it doesn't have to be that way. And you don't have to leave your spouse either when you become more spiritual. If you and your spouse are at two different levels, you don't have to leave your partner because you're growing more spiritually. Obviously, if you guys aren't getting along, that's a whole different story. But,
correct.
I've had clients ask me, should I leave my husband because he's not spiritual at all? I'm like, well, why would you leave him just because he's not, is he abusing you? Do you not love him anymore? That's a different thing, right? But
Right. Yes. Yeah.
You don't have to believe in the same things to have harmony in a relationship. That's not what I believe. And my husband, he does not believe in any of this. He's a hardcore Catholic. He's like, I don't know what you're doing, but I don't understand it. I don't know what it is, but you can just keep doing what you're doing, but don't explain to me because I don't really have an interest. That's fine with me so long as he's not telling me that I can't do it. And to me is like he's being supportive because I can still live freely, speak openly, channel dragons, in my own home, and he doesn't care.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I do a podcast once a month with the Catholic mystic. So there's a ton of mysticism in all different religions. Whether it's Sufism with Islam or there's Christian mystics. So I don't think people have to, the church goes against channeling, of course. Obviously one, you're a woman, so you can be a priest, but two, they wouldn't have you be a nun and you be a channeler at the same time, even though there was a history of mystics, in the church. But I find whether I go to Catholic church or Christian church, whether I go to the cathedrals in Rome or wherever I'm at, I find great solitude and peace in those scenarios. And I feel like they're very spiritual to me personally. I don't like modern churches. So, I just don't like, it feels commercialized and, there's the music's cool. I like the music, but it's like, I like things that are deeper, more spiritual in my essence, and everybody's different. Maybe somebody goes to, the cool modern church and thinks it's amazing. I want to get into, you mentioned dragon channeling and energy work, and this is where people are going to be like, whoa, 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 what's going on here? But we're a spiritual podcast, so this will be fun. And we've had lots of different channelers on. Dragon channeling. So that sounds intense.
Yeah, it is.
Where does this dragon energy for healing and ascension, where did it begin to creep up in your life, and how did you begin to explain this?
It was really hard to explain. I think that's why I hid for so long, because I didn't know how to explain what this was in words that people could understand. It took me several years. And it started at a plant medicine ceremony. I didn't know it was dragons at first, but as when I
keep interrupting you, but what did they look like? You can't just do plant ceremony and then skip past that.
Okay, well, okay.
Like what were they? Did they look like dragons? Like what did they look like?
No, so it wasn't initially what I thought were dragons at first. So I encountered Kali Ma, the Hindu goddess, and it was all her, whatever she was doing in my body and with my mouth and my tongue, it was all her. And the way my tongue was moving and how I was feeling in my body compared to then a few years later at Mount Shasta, that's how I knew that was the initial introduction to dragons. With Kali was my introduction to dragons. I thought it was just Kali initially.
Did anybody focus on your throat chakra?
Well, yes. So I'll tell you the story. Okay. So go to the plant medicine ceremony. My intention was to meet my spiritual team face to face. And so I go under, and next thing you know, I'm free falling. There's no end to it. I don't feel it. I'm not in my body. I'm just this energy, and I'm free falling, and there's no end to it. And I'm seeing like indigo and violet and purple and flashes of white. And then my body starts burning up. Like I feel like I'm someone's put me in a bonfire. It's so intense, but it's not painful. It's just hot. And as all this is happening, this voice in my belly is telling me, stick out your tongue. And in the meantime, I'm still here, meaning I'm still like, I know what's going on. And I was like, no, I'm not sticking out my tongue. And the voice says again, stick out your tongue. And I kept resisting. Finally, it was loud and clear. And she was like, stick out your tongue. And so immediately, almost like a reflex, I stuck it out as far as I could. And I screamed so loud it felt like the earth shook. And then I did it again because she told me, do it again. And I did it again. And as I was screaming, it was like this reclamation, she was like, yes, you're doing this for your ancestors. You're doing this for past generations. You're doing this for your family. You're doing this for the future, and it was a really very profound, powerful, intense experience. It only lasted about 15 minutes.
It's just wild because Kali sticks her tongue out.
I know. And I didn't see, that's the whole thing. I didn't know it was her this entire time that I was in the experience until I came out. And I was like, oh shit, I think that was Kali, because that was my intention.
Is it the big red tongue?
Yeah, that was my intention was to meet my spiritual team. And then, come to Mount Shasta, that's when I saw the dragons. But the way I was moving my tongue at the plant medicine ceremony and in Mount Shasta, which in Mount Shasta, I was completely sober. There was like no medicine, no alcohol, no nothing. I just had dinner, it was at a sound bath. And the way my tongue was moving in that activation was very similar to what happened at the plant medicine ceremony. So that's when I realized that was my first time that I was introduced to really the dragon energy. And then in terms of what they look like, they just presented to me like the way we see dragons now. They're big and fierce with wings. There were 5 of them, all different colors, flying above the yurt during that dragon activation in Mount Shasta. And I can't remember if I shared with you what exactly happened, how they had come into my body. And there was another facilitator with me, and they were channeling through her, telling her which chakras to open so that a dragon could come through and which chakras to close as another was leaving. So it wasn't just me that was experiencing it. I had somebody actually validating all of this for me and actually doing it with me. So that was really crazy. And that was, I think it lasted about 45, and it was something that I couldn't pretend didn't happen. I couldn't say it was in my imagination because it was so physical. And again, I didn't travel. I didn't ask to travel. I was here in my body. I was present the entire time, just trying to surrender and just letting this experience happen.
That's so cool. And so you said there was 5 dragons flying over the top, and they look like and that's what I love about dragons, is because they're all in everybody's seen this, like all over the world. Like you can go to Mexico, you can go to Vietnam, you can go to Russia, anywhere, and there's stories of dragons and pictures of dragons. So, it's just one of those spiritual, and I think everybody has seen them, throughout history, if that's approach. What do you feel happened to you? So those chakras were open and closing, these dragons, 5 dragons, did all 5 of them go through you? And then after that, what happens? Like, are you like, holy shit, I'm like the dragon lady?
No, I was like, holy shit, what just happened? I was scared of it, to be honest with you.
Oh, afterwards?
I was scared because I'm like, I don't know what just happened. Nobody really could explain it to me. Like, I'm very analytical. So that's like the downside of being spiritual. I'm also very analytical. So that logical side of the brain really needed an explanation. You needed like more evidence. I kept fighting with it. I mean, since then, I've just been able to channel dragons. It was just like something woke up inside me.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the heat probably from the plant medicine that would, I mean, you had that Kundalini energy and then got on the right frequency. But I mean, I would imagine. But so now you can just channel them. So what was the first time you started hearing a dragon? Was it like you were home and then you hear these whispers and then what the fuck? When was the first time after the yurt thing?
It was just outside.
Continuous?
Yeah, it was just
all
continuous.
The time,
they rarely came through uninvited. So, when I was intentional about channeling, I would invite them and allow them to channel through me. So very rare. They were pretty respectful that way. I think the only time I kind of invited them in Mount Shasta because I knew that dragons were there. I knew something was going to happen, and I did give permission. But had I known it was going to be like that, I don't think I would have. Had I known it was going to be that physical and that, I don't know.
It was, so that there's no plant medicine, there's no alcohol, there's nothing. And that was worse than your plant medicine trip.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That's intense.
It was really, really intense. I mean, my body was convulsing 45 minutes. I was doing all sorts of crazy noises with my throat and my tongue. And I was like singing vibrato, and I don't do that, in these high pitched tones. And it was like I was doing this sound bath, like the dragons were doing the sound bath. It was pretty crazy. And people who know me would be surprised that I channel dragons because I'm very like, calm. I'm very calm. Right. I'm kind of like timid. A little bit guarded.
Very
a little bit guarded as well, So when people either see me channel dragons or they hear that I channel dragons, they're like, "What? Theresa? Like you?"
That's hilarious. Yeah. It's so funny how different people, I mean, I could imagine the people that grew up around Jesus were like, "What?" People that get close to us or friends or whatever. So I want to get into this. So you have this dragon energy, you're channeling. And so when did you begin to think that I had a mission or a purpose to use the energy?
That's a good question. I think when I finally decided to share it, like online, that's when I felt like, shit, I have to actually do something with this. Because again, I didn't know what it was. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to throw it out there. And I'm just going to channel and see what happens. And suddenly people were reacting to it, mostly in a very positive way, like sharing about how they could feel, that 1 minute transmission, how it brought them peace, how it brought them chills, how it reminded them, like it sounded familiar to them, even though they'd never heard of heard of it before. And so for me, it was like, I needed that validation. I needed people to see me so that I could find that courage and bravery to put myself out there to share more of it. And so that's when I, as I reached more people with it, it became clear that, okay, there's a lot of questions. People obviously don't understand this energy. There's a lot of people who have worked with dragons, like as their spiritual team, but really don't know how to work with the energy or don't really understand it. And because I've worked with it for several years now, it's like my turn, my mission, my responsibility. I feel like it's more of a responsibility than anything to be able to share with people what this energy is and how to work with it.
So like in practice, kind of go through, like if somebody's like listening to this and they're like, yeah, I'll hop on our website. I want to have a session with you or whatever, or however you do it. Can you kind of explain that? Like what does that look like? Like what is it in practice?
Yeah, it's a lot of sound. The dragons don't really speak English. They do, but I always tell people, I feel like it's being translated by the archangels. It's not a direct, dragons speaking English, because the dragons I work with, they don't speak English. It's sound and frequency. So mostly it is light language, like dragon light language that I'm speaking to the client. And then we do a sound healing where I bring in the archangels and we do the singing bowls and the frequencies of the angels come through. And then in the end, the dragons come through with the angels and share messages for the client. And then at the very end, I share with them what was shown to me and answer any questions that the client has.
That's awesome. Rudolf Steiner made a quote, which I love. He said that we're angels in training. What do you, because you just brought up archangels. So this is like, now we got archangels and we got dragons, So how are the angels, like, how are they popping into all?
So I worked with the archangels before I worked with the dragons. Yeah. So I feel like archangels are so much easier to work with because I don't want to use the word relatable, but I can speak to them like a friend, like they're like a partner in my life. Whereas dragons, I'll speak to them in English, but they have a very different energy. And I feel like these conversations that I'm having with them in English just aren't as effective versus me just speaking my light language to them with the intention of what it is that I want answered. It sounds really weird and bizarre, but it's like I have to speak light language to the dragons in order to get my...
Is it because for them they're ancient and such high, such high vibration or higher densities of levels or something? That where like angels are they lower?
No.
Like are angels lower?
I mean, they're all, different dimensions, but there's no right. I wouldn't say it's that. I feel like it's just a different way of working with dragons. And you'll meet other dragon channels. I don't know if they call themselves dragon channels, but other people who work with dragons who are fine speaking English to their team. But for me, the way that I work with my team, it's very different. I have to speak light language to them.
Do you feel like it's because of the throat chakra?
Oh, I'm sure it has a huge part to do with that. And for me to continue to trust, this unique gift that, because I feel like spirit needs me to fully trust the gifts that I have and to fully own it. And that means not making it super easy for me by speaking English,
Yeah, no, I get that 100%. And if you have to describe this as far as like dragon energy for spiritual growth, like how would you describe it to somebody like, and you could be macro, like a concept or something, but what if somebody's like, why would I need dragon energy even in my life?
Yeah, I will say it's not for everyone. It's for you if you want to be able to wield this energy, because it is very powerful and very potent. And it really is for people who have a bigger mission, who need that intensity and that, momentum and that power behind what it is that they want to. So dragon energy, there's a lot of like components or a lot of ways that people have experienced dragon energy, or a lot of ways you can work with this dragon energy. So like one of them is like dragon energy is a very activating energy, meaning a lot of times when I'm working with people, there's something within them that's waking up. So they'll come to a session, suddenly they're speaking light language, or they come to a session, suddenly they're clairaudient. It's like that kind of thing. Let me just back up and say this doesn't happen to everyone. It's really for people who are ready to step into their gifts. So if you are...
You use the word intense. What does that mean? Like the energy is intense?
Feel it. Yeah. You can.
Okay, so I've had communication with angels. So it's 10 times more intense than angels? Is it not as loving?
No, definitely loving. Definitely loving. It's hard to compare because everyone feels energies differently.
Mm-hmm.
I can only say, I'm going to keep saying it.
I just feel like a dragon would scare the shit out of me. And it would be like this big, over-encompassing, like intense energy where I'm burning up, flames.
It is oftentimes, okay, so one of the big descriptions or ways people describe dragon energy when they work with me initially is like so much heat in the belly. So it's like this fiery heat, just like how I
had to take my jacket off. It
I know,
was like
see,
cold
me
in
too.
there and it got hot.
It's this fiery heat that moves it's basically from your root, but you really feel it in your sacral and your solar plexus. And that is all like this momentum to be able to open up the pathways so that you can be a clear channel, so that you can receive messages with clarity, so that you can make, decisions, that you're not overthinking, so that you can trust, that you have all the answers, so that you're not relying on outside sources to make decisions in your life. Other thing that dragon energy is, it's like orgasmic energy. That's another thing that I'm witnessing a lot of and I use orgasmic as a way to describe the intensity. So not like a sexual orgasm.
Yeah, like, so you're not like dragon energy and then everybody's having like multiple orgasms. That's not what's happening.
It is. So
maybe
some people have had orgasms, but it's a full body orgasm. It's not like a sexual orgasm.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
And so when I say orgasm, I think everyone or most people can understand the intensity of an orgasm, right? Let's just the intensity of that. It's like, it's hard to put into words, right? That kind of intensity is like dragon energy running.
It's like being extremely in the present moment,
running all throughout your body. It's not just down in your groin area. It's all full body. And that orgasmic energy helps us to tap into the energy of creation, which is also dragon energy, where you can go into the space of creation and build the construct of what it is that you want to create. So this isn't manifestation. This is building the construct. This is, putting together the pieces of what it is that you want. The other thing.
Yeah, I like this. So, go into this more because this is really good.
Okay, into the
like being able to, because we're creative beings. We're to put here on Earth to create. So the construct of it, is it like, are they revealing or showing to us in our own gifts and abilities how we can create?
It's both. I mean, it's a collaborative effort, right? Like, we don't let spirit run our lives. They're here to support us. So as our gifts open up or get activated, we work with our team in spirit and the dragons to be able to create the life. I'll just make it like a general, the life that we want. So let's say, I want to, I'll use an easy one. I want to make, $10,000, this month. Okay, so I'll tap into the dragon energy through meditation, through drumming, through music. There's all sorts of ways you can tap into it. And then once that energy comes through, we move up. So it's like you're moving this energy up through the crown, up through the dimensions, up into the ethers and into the space of creation. And from there, you start to kind of pour in what it is that you want. Okay, so I want $10,000 this month. What does that mean though? Like, it's more than 10,000. I want 10,000 for something, right? So say I want $10,000.
There's a purpose
Yeah.
behind it.
Let's say I want $10,000 to buy a new car because mine broke down. So I'll say, well, I need it for a car. I'll probably need $30,000 actually for a car, $1,000 for a car. Okay. So it's actually not $30,000. It's the car that I want. Okay. So why do I need that car? So you keep going into it. Okay. Why do I need that car? Well, I need to get around. I needed to drive my kids to school. I needed to drive to, my gigs. I need to go work out. I need it to be able to enjoy my life. Okay. Well, what's the purpose of that? How is that going to make you feel? It's all about energy. Okay. And this is not that much different than how you create in other ways as well. Because manifestation is also all about energy. Right.
Right.
So then you ask, how is that going to make me feel? How is this car going to make me feel? Right? It's going to make me feel safe. It's going to make me feel secure. It's going to make me feel less stress. It's going to make me feel at peace. And so if I think about peace, that I think about security, I think about I can't remember what other word that is. Like, so what does that energy feel like? What does the energy of peace feel like? What does the energy of calm feel like? What does the energy of, less stress? Give me another word, the opposite of that. I don't know what that feels like. And you start to bring in that energy into that space. And then from there, you pull it into the reality. You give it like a shape or something. Let's say I give it the shape of a car because it's easy. I'm going to give that feeling of the peace and calm and whatever other feelings and emotions that I have embodied in that space of creation. I'm going to give that as a shape of a car. And now I'm going to bring that down, back down into my reality. And this is kind of then where you start your manifestation process. So you build up there, you bring it down, and then you start manifesting.
That's so awesome. I think that makes it super practical for people to be able to understand. Like I understood all that completely in the way that you're taking something. I think a lot of people with manifesting or abundance teachings or whatever it is, there's always a scarcity fear mindset behind it. There's always like you're calling out the energies of peace, of love, of, being able to be a great mom to my kids and drive them in a safe vehicle. How does that make me feel when I know my kids are safe? Like all of those, you're bringing all those feelings and then putting that into a container for it to be able to be used. Instead of, oh my God, I need 10 grand. Please, God, can you give me 10 grand? I need a new vehicle. It's broke down. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then they're praying with this energy that's all
right.
wrong.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I still do that. You know what I mean?
We all do. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we're all human, right? And we are here to learn from each other, and nobody's perfect. So it's a practice, just like any good skill.
Yeah, I love that. And we're coming up on the hour. So I want to, we've talked for over an hour. I want to kind of leave people with, I always like to have like a spiritual truth or something that is really resonating with you. Maybe it's here recently. Maybe it's been a while. Maybe it's your main teaching. What would you want to leave people with? Maybe you're talking to a 40-year-old mom, whoever it may be. What would you want to leave people with in this podcast that would be of a tremendous help to them?
So I want everyone to remember that you are here for a reason. Even if you feel lost, even if you don't know if you're breathing, then you're worthy and you have a purpose here. And you don't need to be in a rush to figure out what it is. Your purpose is just to live and to find that joy. And then from there, you'll figure it all out. Just make it simple and just make this the best life that you've got.
Yeah, I love that. So beautiful. And what is your website if somebody wants to get a hold of you? I know you're starting to do a lot of online things. What's the best way for them to see your work or to get a hold of you?
It's at my website, Theresa Nguyen Speaks. So it's my first name, my last name, followed by the word speaks.com. And that's the same thing all over social media. Theresa Nguyen Speaks on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram.
I love that. And Theresa, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. We'll put all that in the show notes so everybody can have those links, encourage people to click on them, and then the email blast that we do. And social media, all the things that we do. One of the things that I like to leave people with is, you have a super unique gift. And people look at it and they're like, what, Theresa, dragons, what? And I love that that's so unique, and it's such an experience that you get to give to others, and that you've come to the point to where you're the teacher and you're giving, and I think for all of us, not just receiving all the time and having that selfish, you're actually putting it out there in the world. So, that's awesome. And your gifts are awesome. And I appreciate you and appreciate what you're doing. And just, you could probably sit there on multiple fingers a bunch of times, count all the people that you've helped and healed.
Thank you.
And that's, yeah. So that's really cool. So like I said, we'll have it on the show notes. Everybody click on it and support. We love everyone to support our guests. So thank you, Theresa.
Thank you so much, Jason. Bye, everybody.